Very good evening to everyone, and we are here on day 2 of the World Water Week. And today we have with us the very renowned speaker, Shri Ganesh Pangare Sir ji. And today's talk is going to be on water and heritage learnings from World Heritage Water Systems. This is a very significant topic that Sir has taken up because we are in a world where we need to understand what our past is, because that's the basic foundation of our present. So today's talk I'm going to be sharing with you a few highlights of it. It's going to be dealing with what are traditional or ancient water harvesting systems, examples of traditional drinking water and agriculture water systems from India, Iran, as well as Peru and some other countries. Sir will be touching upon today. Some of the examples in the talk will cover Qanats from Iran and Peru. Sir is also going to be speaking about a particular case study he's done on Burhanpur Qanat built by Mumtaz, from whom Shah Jahan, obviously everyone knows that he built the Taj Mahal for her. There's also going to be a case study on the Chittor fort at Rajasthan. Traditional agricultural systems from the Himalayas, along with Sir will be covering around Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh regions and some other parts as well. And Sir, while his talk continues, he will conclude with some understandings of the ancient heritage systems and modern day policy, and how policy makers are also thinking about what were the reasons why this was built in a particular region or water systems, and how they are all interconnected. So without any further ado, I request Sir to please begin his talk.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce today's guest speaker, Mr. Ganesh Pangare. Ganesh Pangare is recognized as a leader in the area of environment, water resources, agriculture, green infrastructure, climate, and sustainability, with experience spanning over 30 years, largely across Asia Pacific, but also Africa and South Africa. He has worked with international organizations such as the International Water Association, the World Bank, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, the Department of International Development, etc. He has published more than 15 books on water, ecosystems, and biodiversity. He has been quoted in Time magazine, written for Nature, and has publications with FAO, UNESCO, the World Bank, ADB, and other international organizations. Ganesh has been a part of expeditions to Antarctica, the Arctic, the Amazon forest, national parks in Africa and Asia, across the Himalayas and to the Everest Base Camp. His work and personal zeal for adventure has taken him to each of the 7 continents, spanning more than 100 countries. With this short introduction, now I request Ganesh to deliver his talk.
Thank you, Ajit. Thank you, friends. And see, this topic is really a very, very vast topic. This is not as I was mentioning when I started, over the last 30 years of my Bhatkanti, as one would say, across the different places, this has been one of the important topics that I would keep looking at. A lot of my research work is on transboundary water governance, watershed, etc. with the UN. But this is a topic. When I started my work 30 years ago with Center for Science and Environment, there was a book called Dying Wisdom, which I coordinated, and there was a love from there and traveled across India. And over the years, I've tried to keep looking at these systems. Number one, when we look at these systems today, it's such a big topic. It's really nearly every part of the world has systems which date back thousands of years. So therefore, it's very difficult to really, within 45 minutes, to try to cover a lot. So what I've tried to really do is give you a glimpse across some of these systems, number one. Number two, as I just came to know, there is a lot of learned audience listening to the talk. They could be civil engineers. I just heard there's an Indologist. So please don't catch me on the years. When I say 15th century, it could be 1520 or 1510. But it's really, look at it more from the perspective of what I'm trying to show and the context from where that system is. That's one thing I wanted to put a caveat. The second caveat is, by no way do I really want to romanticize these systems, because when these systems were in place, it was, some of them, if you look at, if they were 1,000 years ago, the population was less, But what is really important to understand is, as they say, that if you do not understand your past or learn from it, you will fail in your future. I think from that perspective, please look at the whole talk. And the second important point that I would really like you all to keep in mind is that there are a lot of still learnings. And if you draw one common thread across the systems, across when we see, as I go ahead in my talk, it's really common sense. And a lot of us have forgotten common sense today. And our ancestors really had that a lot. And second, they knew how to live with nature, how to live in the climates they lived in. I think this is the background I wanted to say before I really proceeded. And as the person who introduced me already mentioned, it's really a glimpse of across some drinking water systems, some agriculture, but a large number of these systems actually took care of both. That is, obviously they gave water for drinking, but also were used for agriculture. So without further ado, let me begin my presentation. So again, as I was saying, that once human beings settled down from hunter-gathering stage, they all needed to drink water, and they needed water for agriculture. So this is really the basics of any system that we are talking about. So when the moment humans settled down, they needed water to drink, and they needed water for agriculture when they settled down. And the second part is that this is really the fundamentals of what one is talking about. So let us not also bracket them when we say traditional. Traditionally, just meaning that they were from the past, many of them have gone in disuse, or some of them are still in use. So we have to be also careful that sometimes when we say traditional, people tend to dismiss it. I think that is not what I would want you all to look at or hear this talk. It's really understanding the beauty by which, when humans settled, how did they deal with the element of water, which is the basic fundamentals for both drinking and agriculture. And again, for all of you, this is not a kind of a new thing. The Indus Valley civilization itself, which goes back to 4,000 years, this is the Great Bath in Mohen-jo-daro, which is now in Pakistan, had a very intricate water harvesting system and drainage system. In the middle, I'll keep jumping in the sense saying that how in the past, when they had water harvesting, they also had a fantastic drainage system with it. And today, when we reflect, just look at how our modern cities develop. How many of them do have water supply, and how many of them do have drainage. I think this is the things we have to keep going back and forth. That how, when even 5,000 years ago, when people started settled, they got water harvesting and drainage is an integral part together. Again, there are people who are Indologists, or Deccan College in Pune has done a lot of work, and many others, that it has been clinchingly, the evidence has been there that the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilizations were also very advanced hydraulic systems. Hydraulic system meaning that they were very good water managers. This is from the famous Dholavira Harappan site in India, in Gujarat, near Kutch. This is one of the big tanks which was found. This is a schematic diagram of one of the ports at Lothal. This is a picture, but this is an actual, the place is called Lothal in Gujarat. What I'm trying to do in the next few slides is also just running you through a spectrum from the Indus Valley, which was 4,000 years ago, to some of the systems to about 300-400 years ago. Just trying to give you a setting. So some of the examples I've tried to select for this talk, as I said, I could have talked for an hour on the systems of Bali or Iran or Mexico or China, but what I've tried to do is to give you some where there is a connect also with India. There's a connect where some of the examples where, or you must have not heard and they are interesting. And that's how I've selected some of the case studies, because I could have put 50 case studies together. But what I've done is actually try to put 3 to 4 case studies from around the world, and from drinking water, and 3 or 4 from agriculture side. Persepolis in Iran goes back to about 550 to 300 BC. That is roughly about 2,500 years ago. In short, Persepolis is a short for Parsa, which is actually where the Parsis, which all of us in India are familiar with the Parsis, they came from this region. This is where their kingdom was, Darius. And I'm not getting into the history of Persepolis, but just trying to tell you again that something 2,500 years ago had, as I said, the Parsis, the Parsa, they came from here, this region. This is near Yaz in Iran. Had, again, a very intricate, interesting water harvesting and a drainage system. I think that is what I wanted to highlight from here, that 2,500 years ago, Persepolis had a very interesting, again, water harvesting system, because this region again was a very drought area, so they needed water. So again, they had harvested whatever rainfall came and used every drop of it judiciously. Just for history's sake, Alexander the Great in 330 BC actually destroyed Persepolis, but it's a UNESCO heritage site, quite an interesting place if you ever go to Iran. From here, if you move, I can talk again, as I said, for an hour on the whole Roman system. The Romans love to play with water, like the Mughals played with water. The Romans also love to play with water. If you go to Rome or go to any Italian town, you will see intricate systems. And also when the Romans left in their empire, their vast empire, they took with them a lot of the techniques of water harvesting and this. So we can learn a lot about ancient hydraulics from the Roman system. If you go across to, and this is again one of the Roman square. Why have I put this picture is, again, as I said, sometimes it's common sense. Even today, we hear that the government says, water harvesting kara, rooftop harvesting. This is a 500-year-old or 600-year-old structure. All the water from the roofs is to collect down and recharge the well, which the priests would then use the water from the well. Again, a lot of the systems, I feel a lot of hydraulics to a large extent is common sense. And how do you harvest the rainwater that falls? That's really the principle. How do you store it during dry periods? And then how do you access it for drinking and agriculture period? This is again a common thread one would see across the systems in the world, may it be the drought parts of Iran, the Roman systems, the systems in Bali or other places. We can jump and we can even talk. This is the Angkor Wat temple in Cambodia, where all of us we have heard, and specifically Indians. This is Angkor Wat temple is actually the Chittor or pyre of Vishnu. And again, Indologists can, I'm not getting into details, but it is the Vishnu temple in Cambodia. Again, very interesting water systems, the way they had water for drinking and water for agriculture. We can go to, this is not South India, this is in Bali. Again, very interesting systems. This is actually a part of larger greater India we can be proud of, where when the Indians went down to Southeast Asia, they took a lot of the systems, that is the famous tank systems of South India, were taken along with them to Bali, as I just showed, to Indonesia. Bali is part of Indonesia, but other parts of Indonesia also. So therefore, what I was trying to give you was that a flavor that across the world, from 5000 BC till today, there are systems, some of which are still working. There is a lot of knowledge. There is a lot of interesting things one could learn from them. And I think this is what this picture will depict a thing. This is a 13th century in Italy. That spring, that system which was built in the 13th century is still, you can see water flowing even today. So there is something in that system, in the way they designed their systems and the way they managed it. So from here, giving you a quick overview, I now will go really to, as I said, one of my favorite ancient systems, and it's really something that one of the best best in the sense, a system which moved from Iran to around the world today. You can find Qanats in more than 20 countries today. And so therefore, what is a Qanat really? Qanat is nothing but how do we get groundwater, bhujalatla pani, surface la आपण कसा आणू शकतो with the basis of gravity. Means I think that is the very, very interesting and beauty of it. And I'll go into the details. And taking a bit of time here, when the rain falls on the slopes, on the hills, it goes down and recharges the groundwater. So what a Qanat system really does is, these are shafts. What these shafts really do is actually also have air pressure going in, and by gravity, this water is got to the surface. It's as simple as that. And then you will ask me, how long are these systems? How long are these tunnels? And as I said, I can talk till the cows come home, or for at least 2 days, I can talk to you about the Qanats. But this Qanat, for example, which I'm going to share from you from Iran, and I'm going to show you one Qanat, and its whole sequence is about 70 kilometers long. So a really interesting system. Second, Afghanistan had a lot of them. From Iran, it went to Afghanistan, Pakistan. You have Qanats in Mexico, as I said, Peru, in China, in other parts. But the origin really comes pre-Islamic from Persia of this system, and then its spread happened. So let me move on actually now to picture. This was a schematic diagram, and I'll keep coming back to it if somebody has not understood it. So this is a dry Yaz region of Iran, as you can see, absolutely dry. But in the picture, you can see that from far, this is a Qanat which I told you, Zarek Qanat, which is a UNESCO heritage Qanat. The length is about 70 kilometers. These things which you can keep seeing, these are sharp. Some of them have got now over time a little bit, silted and all, but I'll come back to it. This is how they look from the aerial view. And all these small things you see, these are air shafts, and many small tunnels like these undergrounds. They would dig and come, and they would all join together then to form one main thing before it reached the town. This is an underground shot. Actually, what they did is that you could actually, some of this, in this Qanat, it's nearly 70 meters at one point at the extreme end of it. And then it keeps coming, as I said, to the ground level. From 70 kilometers to ground level, you have continuous shafts and with air pockets. And people can then, obviously you will ask me that over so many years, and this is, as I said, a pre-Islamic, but clearly recorded records of this Qanat go back to about 1500 years. But it's also said it's pre-Islamic. So it's a really 100-year-old Qanat. And they would break, they would of course repair, and people could actually walk in. There were specific people who could go down, walk in these tunnels to clean, desilt these channels. These are steps, as you can see, leading down to the shaft where then people could go both ways. Just a small trivia, actually, in the last 20 years of the Afghanistan war, a lot of the, actually it's not a good, bad, ugly, but the Taliban actually lived in these Qanats in the last 20 years, and of course the US bombed them. So a lot of the Qanats of Afghanistan got destroyed in the last 20 years of the war, which is a sad thing, but that's another story. This is coming now just so that you understand that from after about 60 kilometers, this is the first time the water has now come to the surface area. As you can see, these people are picking up. Obviously, in the past, nobody would come and do this. But now, as the town has grown, as we also have, the main city of Pune, then you go out, and there is peri-urban, and then the outer Pune, like that, and there's no water supply. These people are coming to, because this is 12 months water supply free of cost, and clean, fresh water, and sweet water. They come to collect, even with their cars, as you can see, coming to take water home. So, to repeat again, a Qanat is tapping an underground aquifer deep in the earth's surface, and then with the help of gravity, with the help of tunnels and shafts, with gravity bringing it to surface. I hope I have been able to explain you till this point. And therefore, this is the Karez Qanat now coming for the first time to the surface. From here, it is about 4 or 5 kilometers to the town. And as I said, this Qanat would supply both drinking water, not this way, this is only present, but in the past it would go down to their homes, and they had wells from where they would collect it. And the second is, as I also said, this same Qanat would also give water for irrigation to the fields, and I'll come back to those pictures. So this is the Qanat now, as I said, came to the surface and now going towards the town. But on the way, then when it goes, it also gets distributed down to farms down as it goes down. Again, picture doesn't need explanation. It's reaching one of the channels, reaching the farms. And again, you can see then sub-channel. Once it reaches the surface, there's a management system. There is to be strict disciplines of how they would manage it, which I'm not getting into detail now, but obviously if there's some questions, we can get into that, because sometimes the system may seem very simple, but the management principles are very important, which are actually relevant for us in today's time. This is one of the streams from that same Qanat now going to a date palm, khazur. Excellent khazurs in that drive. As we all know, we love the khazurs from the Middle East, from Iran, and you can see, you can sleep on the ground and actually eat these dates. They were one of the tastiest dates I've eaten in my life. This picture I purposely put, I know this is not interactive. If you are an interactive audience, I would have asked you, what is this? Hey, bora nahi hai. These are not, this is not zippers. This is actually pistachio. Pista je apun khato. So this is actually a pistachio plantation, and this is the pista workers harvesting pista. But again, the reason to show you this picture is the same Qanat water is also irrigating this very rich, economically rich crop that is pistachio, what Iran was famous for. This is a close-up version of the bunch of pistas. People say that we all eat only dry pista because we never get to eat really fresh pistas. But let me tell you, if you eat fresh pistas from inside this, then you will not want to eat the dry pista. So this is what I wanted to give you a quick overview of what the Qanat was. Then it comes to how it came to the surface. Then it comes to the agricultural field. Then it came then to the town. And in the town, it went underground. As I said, they again had an elaborate system underground where the water from this Qanat then went, for example, to the mosque. It didn't go to every household, but it went to certain collection points in the past where people could then actually go and collect fresh water. Taking it further, this is therefore, if somebody was interested in the name, what was when I was mentioning it, the Qanat of Zaj and the Zami Mosque in Yaz. So in this whole mosque, whole underground, and the water for prayer when they used to use all came from this Qanat. So now you saw that they got water from 70 kilometers. This Qanat dates back to more than at least 1500 years and still working. And this is how the whole network was in Iran, and it went to Afghanistan, as I said, Pakistan, the dry Iraq, and it spread. So I think it's a fantastic system. Someday I can, if you are interested, we can share. I'll give you my email if you want to know more about these systems. And if you ever want to visit, quite happy to share details with you all. So this is the Qanats, and this was from Iran, one of the most famous Qanats of Zaj. Now, as we are changing now, coming a little bit gear is, this is a beautiful picture. As we all know, Persians were beautiful in their art. And this is in one of the mosques in Shiraz, a very famous town of Iran. And you can see the beautiful Persian paintings in that. Again, because it's virtual, I can't ask you the question. But now if I'm going to show you a next slide. And again, a beautiful Persian painting inside the dome. And now I stop. Now if I tell you that this Persian thing on a dome is in India, I think I hope that most of you don't know about it, but usually 1 out of 100 have not known about this. Whenever I've talked to any Indian, that this is in India. As I said, this is Iran, and this is India. This is India. But there is also a sad story with it, but I'll first say the good story with this quickly. The good story with this is now the town in what I was saying in Baranpur. Many of you, if you are from Pune listening to this talk, then from Pune to Delhi, that when you go by train, after Jalgaon, just after about 40 minutes, you enter, the next station, Jalgaon is the last station this side, Bhusawal, and in Maharashtra, and then the next station is Baranpur in Madhya Pradesh. So this is the town of Baranpur where the story I'm going to take you. Why is this so interesting? As we mentioned that Baranpur was the town in the Mughal times. We all know that the Mughal Empire, the sons always killed their fathers, or there was always a problem. So always they tried to send their kids, their sons, to the south. So Baranpur was an important town in the Mughal times as an outpost of the Mughal Sultanate in Delhi or Agra for the Dakhan. Yeah. So coming to, therefore, I'm trying to go fast now. Baranpur is famous, therefore, for the Mumtaz. As we all know, that Shah Jahan built the Taj Mahal for Mumtaz. I can again go a lot of the historical part that it was the 14th childbirth. In their 18 years of marriage, it was the 14th time she was giving birth, and she died. She died in Baranpur. That's important. Number two, why I'm trying to show you Baranpur is that so she was a daughter of a Persian, and in roughly 1615, a Persian geologist came to Baranpur and built this the Qanat in the town of Baranpur, which is, I think, very interesting. I first did this story something like 30 years ago. By then, really, people thought that there were no Qanats in India, or there were. But this is one of the first documentation, actually, that there is a Qanat system, and I'm coming to it now. So Baranpur is on the banks of the Tapi Nadi, And behind is the fort where I showed you. That was the hammam. That is the bathing place for Mumtaz, where the water of the Qanats of Baranpur she got for her hammam and also for drinking water. And I'll come back later. You should have the question that when there is a river next to the fort, why did they have to bring water underground? I'll come back to that a little later. Just hold on. This is a place, so as I was telling you, just so that you get a historical perspective, Mumtaz died in Baranpur and she was buried there in this place. And after some time, Shah Jahan then again excavated her body and then took it to Agra till the time then the Taj was completed. So historically, if one is a Taj lover, then this is a very important link in that part of history. But from my point of view of history, it is more beautiful is because what I'm going to now show you and next. So this is what this is the hammam, bathing of Mumtaz. And on the top, if you can see, that is where these paintings, which I showed you 2 or 3 on the top are there. Sadly, I go to say the good and bad together. This is the only one which is preserved if you go even today. The other 2 hammams, the archaeology department about 25 years ago whitewashed them. Don't ask me why. Let's not cry about it now, but that is the really sad situation sometimes. But today at least this one is preserved. But you can see a lot of the people who built it, who painted it, never wrote their names. But Sanu goes and loves Sanju or somebody, and they all will write that they visited this place on the walls and they love somebody all on these walls. But that's the sad part, but we'll come back to that later. So this is the hammam. But now let me come to the real story. Come back. So this is one more picture of that beautiful paintings in this hammam, still which are left today. Yes, so this is what I really wanted to now show you, that in 1650, Persian geologists came and built the Qanat system, and this is what it was. Sadly, this one right side is the Satpura ranges. From this Qanat is about 7 to 8 kilometers long. The same concept, that water percolating down into the groundwater, shafts were then there. Then there was to be a collection point. Then this is a little bigger thing shown, but from clay pipes then going to towns, to the town and then to the hammam. And this is on the left, the Tapi River. So as I had shown you, this is the same principle, obviously the same Persian geologists, not the same, but from that knowledge, who had come and built this system roughly in the 1615 in Baranpur town. This is how the shafts look. As I said, there will be engineers in the room. These shafts, actually what they did is actually give the pressure for the water down, air pressure, to get it to the gravity level. Today, if you go, please, you will not see this picture. This is way back in 1990. For some, as usual with the growing of the town, somebody has come and broken all of this. This is priceless history, but it is gone now. This picture was taken by me in 1990. Some of them, as you can see, as the town grew, this is one of the streams of the shafts. You can see where some people, what they did is they broke it, but they made it like this so that they could get free water in their house. Each one started, because there's water flowing down 24 hours, as I said, from 1615 to even today, there is water flowing. So a lot of people, each shaft used it as their own well in their backyard. And this is a picture of this in modern times. And a quick, this is, as I said, this is the Baranpur station. Even if your train stops for a second, you can see one of the shaft actually is on the station platform. And of course, it's now got destroyed, and this is gone because when the station was built and things were done and digging was done, the other side was cut off. But there is still on the Baranpur station, one of the shafts of the Qanat is still present till today. But you can't drink this water today. Sadly, it's gone. It's nearly dried up. But the other one shaft is still, water still flows from it. So this is what I wanted to really, for me, it's a very interesting matter of pride. And this is also heritage that one needs to protect, whatever reason it may be, but when we expand our cities, when we expand our urban areas, we cannot let go some of these systems, because this was the only one in India. So as I said, hold on to the question quickly, is that, again, if it was a virtual audience, I would have stopped and asked you all for a question. So this is the Tapi River, and this was the fort which Shah Jahan and, of course, Mumtaz and others lived. The reason being, of course, I can't get an answer back from you, is if the enemy poisoned the water, actually that is why they didn't want to. That is one of the reasons which historians say, and therefore they wanted a protective water source. And it so happened that Mumtaz was Persian and she came. So there can be many reasons, but one of the main reasons being that the Qanat gave the Baranpur town, the Sultanate, a very a safe drinking water system, and that's one of the reasons why it also evolved. So jumping from now, that's what I wanted to do, link you from Iran, from where the Qanat started, to really what we have a heritage in India, to, as I said, just so that you know that I also said that they went, the Qanats migrated to Latin America. This is the, some of you, if you heard about the Nazca lines, if not, don't worry, we can talk about them some other day. The town of Nazca, from about 30 kilometers from there, you find the Qanats of the Nazca area. Again, as you can see, it's dry area. The only way that agriculture was possible was the way that they built these underground Qanats, getting the water from the faraway mountainous regions to the surface. And you can see the way, this is a closer view, and that's the line. If you can look straight from the front to back, these are 1, 2, 3 shafts connected as the water was coming to the surface. And today you have people actually who can go down and walk down and go down and collect water also. But there's even flowing water today. These are the that's where the down, you can see that's the water, and then there's a big chamber which goes long underneath this. And this is the way, as I said, the water comes to the surface and then is used for drinking water as well as for agriculture, which I showed you in the earlier picture. I promised again, I want that to show you some pictures that Machu Picchu again is a dream for everybody to visit once in their life. It's a heritage site, one of the wonders of the world. Machu Picchu was in the 15th century, 2,500 meter elevation, 7,000 about Nainital height from the mean sea level. And this is the view of Machu Picchu when you go up the fort ramifications. Closer view of the Incas, their dwelling. Again, what I want to show here is that even at this height when they lived, what they really did is, and I think it's let's not think that the Machu Picchuans and the Incas did something greater than what Shivaji did on Sivagat. In the sense, even on Sivagat we have Devtaka, or and there is a different logic to that. That's a perched aquifer, but tapping the spring, and the same way the Incas also tapped the springs. But being at that height, they managed their water, and then they had a proper drainage system also along with it. Just enjoy the pictures. And as I said, at that height, 1500 years back, 500 years back, they had a very interesting way that they lived there. And then, of course, they had terraces, because it's the same terrace concept for agriculture, that if we have gone to Himachal or even in Konkan, when you go, we have terraces. Same way they had terraces for agriculture, and they also harvested, as I said, the spring and other runoff for their drinking water needs. So this is, as I said, even today, you have running water in the Inca system in Machu Picchu. So it's really, really interesting and fascinating when you go there. And one can go into the details of it. But for just now, I'm just running you through the system of how they had these channels connected, going from house to house. Then then the drainage, the difference between drinking water thing and drainage. So it was an amazing system. If you ever get any opportunity in our life, you must see it just for its sheer beauty and how the hell they went and lived there. Even today, there's no road really going up very well, and it's a very beautiful area of the planet, in the planet historical site. So I just quickly took you to Peru, Machu Picchu, and I thought, let me get you back closer home, closer to our forts. Many of you have gone to Udaipur, Jodhpur, as I said, even forts in Maharashtra, from in Alipur. So everywhere you needed water. What I'm going to really tell you is just to show you a few systems, but with the Chittor fort, give you something as a historical perspective, how we can use water to also look at history, and I'll just tell you that come in a second. So as I promised you, as I said, this is the, again, with forgiveness to the historians, with forgiveness to the Rajputs around, that this is Padmini, the famous movie also was made, so it became more famous. Of course, there is a whole story with whether she was there, not there. I'm not getting into that. What I'm going to get into is that the fort is there, and water harvest systems were there, and certain part of history we can decipher from studying water, and that is what I'm going to stick to you when I talk to you now about the Chittorgarh Fort. What is important about Chittorgarh Fort is, if somebody of you have gone, you will immediately understand. If you have not gone also, let me tell you, imagine you, it's a little higher than Parvati. Think of it like that. Many of you have gone to Parvati, and Parvati cha Varti hai Killa. So think of it like that. That's Chittorgarh Fort for you. And what is interesting is that on the fort, this is a study, again, as I said, I did it way back in the late 90s, that we really mapped the whole water bodies that were there on the fort. There are 2 or 3 things I'm going to tell you very interesting here, other than what are important, and why Irfan Habib, who was a very famous historian of India, was very thrilled when I showed him this presentation, was because we all hear that, okay, let's even say that there was this whole Padmini was there. Then we all know that they committed Johar, that is Sati Gele. There were the 13,000 women when Sati, and again, I'm not getting into the history. You all know Alauddin Khilji had attacked, and that part of the story I'm not getting into. But what is the historical importance is that we never think back that if Alauddin Khilji had surrounded this fort for 1 year, where did so many people who they said lived in this fort get their water from? Where did agriculture come from? And I think this is a small way by which, if we calculate how much water could be there in one area, and civil engineers would be happy to do this, is and to look at and get into the mapping of it. And we had done this, as I said, in the late 90s. We mapped that 84 bodies were there. Today, if you go, there are still 22 major water bodies still exist. But the interesting thing we realized is that all the water bodies on Chittorgarh Fort, who could harvest in a good year of say in that part, Aravalli, say 500 to 700 millimeters a year, could harvest 3 billion liters of water per year. And if you even look at it as 20 liters per day, they are not using showers, 20 liters per day per person for animals and horses, elephant and people, then we can historically say that it is, yes, possible that for 1 year you could have a population of about 20,000 also living on the fort. I think that is how one can correlate. Sometimes facts we keep saying, 1 lakh people are there, 2 lakh people are there. But then what is the collaboration sometimes if it is not written in history? I think this is an important point I was trying to make here, is that looking at how the water was harvested and used on the fort, we can therefore project what kind of population could have lived on the fort. And that is where I was coming to, that one can then believe that yes, 13,000 women could have gone sati in the fort of Chittorgarh. So that is the interesting part. And without getting again more details, what they would really do is, if you can see these arrows, it may be small for a few people. These were larger catchment tanks, as I say. Then that led to smaller tanks and then to wells. So what would happen that the tanks or talab or like the Pashan Lake, this is like something like that on the top of the fort, that would recharge the wells. The well water would be used by the people for drinking. And after the rainy season, in the drier parts of these catchments of these on the top of this fort, they would also do some vegetable and agriculture. So they would also get fresh vegetables. So that is what I'm trying to say, that how one can start thinking how such a large population could live there even when the fort was in siege and nothing could come from outside. I think that was the beauty, and that is why I wanted to share an example with on Chittor Fort with you. And the second part is, I'm not getting into it, that sometimes, of course, they also had ways by which, if they opened a certain way, there would be openings, and if water gushed out, the enemy, if it was trying to climb a certain slope, would fall, but because of the sudden rushing water. So there are different ways. It was also water used for defense, but more importantly, people could live on this fort if there was siege from the enemy. And another just shot of one of the big talabs, Hatikund, on the fort of Chittor. And now I'm going to again go fast. As I said, if you go all across India, we have sprinklings from our ancient times of systems. This is the Upper Court Fort in Junagadh. If somebody has gone, again built hundreds of years back, but still today, the municipal corporation, of course, it is not enough for the city, still uses the same system and the same tank for distribution of water to some part of Junagadh. So, very, very interesting. As I said, I gave you one example from now India of towns in the last 300-400 years. But in the last 800-900 years in Europe, or many other places, I showed India, or in other parts of the world, when towns started developing, they had to get water. So again, this is a very famous UNESCO heritage aqueduct, getting water to the town from some distance. This is in Elvas in Portugal. This aqueduct is nearly 8 kilometers long, half of which is underground, and then half, by the time when it comes to the city, this is the way. So the arches, the top part is actually from where inside that the water is actually coming from 7 kilometers further from the springs in the mountains. So these are aqueducts. You can find them all again across many parts of the world. But this was an interesting one. I thought I could quickly share with you. Another picture of just before the aqueduct hits the town, the beautiful the structure and the arches of the aqueduct. Another view of from that aqueduct. Now today, of course, cars going through it. Earlier, I guess horses went, or carriages. Again, here interesting is that it was again used for both. It was not only for the water supply of the town. This is roughly, this Elvas is roughly 16th century, 1573 it started, but in Europe also there were invasions. So the moment enemy came, they would try to break the system, then it was rebuilt. But the foundations of this are about 16th century. And as I said, I showed you in Iran, I showed you pistachio dates. Here, this part of the world is famous. We all use olive oil. So this is an olive orchard, and this is what green or raw olives look like on the tree from which olive oil is made. Again, just as a trivia for as we go along. Quickly, yesterday, I'm not going to go into step wells into details, but step wells, yesterday, if anybody had logged on, we had two very interesting and brilliant lectures on step wells of India. Step well is nothing but, again, reaching the ground, the water, groundwater by a system of steps, and the way these were done. This is in Gujarat. If somebody didn't attend yesterday's lecture, 2 or 3 important parts of these step wells is that these were usually done by the king's nobility, their wives. These step wells were on the big routes, like suppose coming the Rajasthan to Maharashtra route, there would be step wells all along it. We don't have so intricate, but even Maharashtra has step wells. So a large part of central, west, and southern India has step wells, but the best step wells, intricate ones, are in Gujarat and Rajasthan. And also in because we know that in Gujarat, Rajasthan, temperatures are very high in the day. People or the royalty would go down, and because it's cooler near the water, they would stay in these rooms and spend the afternoons. As I said, I'm not going to talk more on step wells, but this is the famous. They are called Wow, Baudi in Rajasthan, Wow in Gujarat, or English step wells. But I think for again all of you, as a matter of trivia, please all of you open your. If you have, I'm going to show you the picture. But if a 100 rupee new note, then this step well that you're seeing in the picture now, Rani Ki Vav, is there on the new 100 rupee note. Sometimes we don't look at our notes carefully, but next time please show your children or you yourself look at it. And when you look at the 100 rupee note, the Rani Ka Vav is a step well behind your 100 rupee note, behind our 100 rupee note. So that's what I said. I'm not going to go into details of step wells, but I can't go without talking about step wells in our traditional systems in India or the world. Then there is a whole story, there is a whole lecture, there is a whole thing globally on water harvest. We had water harvesting, but there is also water lifting devices. Here, Marathi Rahat Mantat, Persian wheel, but today again, of course, because groundwater has gone so deep because of bore wells, you don't see any more Persian wheels or Rahat. Maharashtra's hote, there were so many songs in old Marathi movies, and all across India, all across the world, you actually had this is actually called the Persian wheel, but Marathi Rahat, or but this was one of the last ones, I think, in Rajasthan, but they are all now gone. Today, you will not. I don't think you'll see a single one left. But there, as I said, there's a whole story on water lifting devices, and that's a whole different lecture on how they would also take water from at heights or different lifting devices. But that's for some other day. But just wanting to show you one of them was that this the wheel on the right moved, and that's how the water came from the well to the surface, and then it went for irrigation. Quickly, the last two, I'm going to jump. I tried to show you a lot with drinking water and agriculture, but now I'm going to just show you agriculture and something. Again, I thought I'd take some example where many of us must have not gone. So this is a very, very interesting example, and I'll come back to why I'm showing you this example. This is the Apatanis are, this is the Apatani tribe. You can see that the woman in their nose had bamboo piercings, and there's a whole again story behind it. But the Apatani tribe is a place called Zero in Arunachal, and this area is around Zero are the Apatani tribes who lived, and this is a system again clearly documented for more than 600-700 years, or it can be older, but a very interesting system because today all modern day agriculture in many agricultural universities or the International Rice Research Institute, they all say that with the growing of rice, we should also have fish culture happening, so you get more protein. But the Apatanis, for last 700-800 years, were doing this system of rice come fish culture. And it was a very interesting, again, as I said, the engineering was at one level sophisticated, at one level simple. It was all gravity system. By channels, water would come to fields. And this is how then it would be going from one field to the other. And there would be actually, and the other thing, all the women in the group should be proud of, and I'll come to it, that in this Apatani rice system, it was actually only the women who worked. Now, don't ask me why men don't work, but in this system, they don't use bullock cart, and that's my one reason where most of agriculture men only do the tilling with the bullocks, and then 99% of the work women do. But here, since they don't use bullocks, and again, it's a very interesting that this system is completely only managed and done for the last so many hundred years only by the women, which is again, all the women in the group listening should be very proud of that. Women, we all know, do more work than men. And here again, this is to show you they're cleaning the channels. So let me step back. Number one, by gravity, they got water. The interesting things in this was management, in the sense that in today's modern systems, what happens is that whose land is near the upper end of the tank or where the canal starts takes more water, and whose land is at the bottom part gets less water. But in the Apatani system or many other systems in the Himalayas, the distribution, there was a fair distribution, and we can come to it how it was. And there was also a system in Maharashtra, which is now no more, near Nasik, called the Phad system, which also, it was very simple boulders across streams. But very interesting was the management system, in where the person who there was a person in charge for letting the water to all the fields. If that person failed in his duty, he was penalized. And if he did his job well, he was rewarded well. So that is also in the Phad system, and I can come how they rewarded, or the systems in Nepal or the Apatanis. There was an accountability on the person who managed the water. But today, I'm sad, and with no offense to any civil engineer in the room, we have no accountability. If the irrigation dam fails to supply water to the farmers and the farmer's crop is burnt, of course, we can say that there is insurance, etc. But there is no accountability that the civil engineer in the irrigation department will lose his job. I think in these places, and there are even cases in South India where the person even lost his life. So let's not get there. But I think the management principle one has to understand is that between the old and the new is that there was ownership or accountability, on the person managing the system, and it worked both ways. If he failed, he was penalized. If he did well, he got a very good reward. We'll come back to this if there's time in the discussion. But this is a fantastic thing, and I don't have pictures when the fish were there. There was but in the rice fields they would also go fish. And as I said, we don't need modern engineers to tell them. 700-800 years ago, the Apatanis and many other parts of the world would do rice and fish culture together. I jump quickly now to Ladakh. Again, if some of you have gone to Ladakh, Ladakh is a cold desert. We know that the desert is Rajasthan, but Ladakh also is a cold, high mountain desert where there's very little rainfall, 200-300 millimeters of rainfall. It's a cold desert, and therefore, whatever little water they can get, and again, this is actually snow melt really, which they get, or some places spring, but it's really snow melt in the day, which they had to get, and then the irrigation actually then happens at night. This is how that stream comes, gets collected, and then goes to. So therefore, even in that harsh environment of Ladakh, they build their systems in very simple ways. But again, here there was a whole way of managing it. In one village, if one fellow took all that water, what would the others do? And therefore, there were systems by which, of course, over time, many of these are going. And I guess, said, if there is time or later, whenever you want, we can discuss more about these systems. But just now, I'm just trying to show you visually how they were. The snow melt would be collected in the day, in the night. By the time water would collect in this puddle like this tank, and then it would go to the fields. And this is how even in the harsh environments of they grew barley, they grew vegetables, and even today they do it actually. This is harvest of barley. This is close to now all of Kargil war, the Dras sector area. So therefore, coming to soon closing the talk now is last 1 or 2 minutes is, bear with me, that I think what the interesting things, and I can do a lot of theory, but today I didn't want to get into too much theory, which I can tell you a lot about each system. It's what was its technical, physical structure, how was it done, to its management, to its other things. But the important part was, as I said, all these systems, they were scientifically proven over time, number one. And the second is ecosystem. In what region they were they evolved in Rajasthan, they evolved in the South India, heavy rainfall somewhere area, or the Himalayas. So they evolved with the ecosystem, and that is what one has to say. We just can't superimpose systems that sometimes modern technology tries to do, that somewhere we found something and we want to superimpose it. I think that, in my way, is a wrong thing. We can take good things, learnings from other places, but one has to really look at the ecology, the environment, the stone structure. Is it basalt? Is it granite? And therefore, these systems looked at all of that in a holistic and integrated way. And quickly to end, actually, as I said, to sum up, really the physical structure suited the terrain in which they operated. Water was managed most of the time as what is the common pool resources. I'll come back. What it means really is managed commonly, managed in a systematic way. Principles were laid down. People, if rules were broken, then people had to, there were penalties for rules to be broken. And as I said, lastly, is that most important, which we forget in modern day systems, is that the water usually was distributed fairly. Even though there was a king, he tried to distribute it fairly to all his citizens. Or if there was a large, as a town in the 600, 700, whatever you call it, the mayor of the town or whatever, they tried to bring in what was the most important point, which I think lacks in modern systems, is the issue of equity and also the issue of conservation. So all of these systems, when you look, there were strict rules on how the water was conserved. Today, and I'll end with this, in Udaipur, many of you have gone. Today we say the lake palace so many times dried up. The lake palace of Udaipur is linked by many smaller lakes which actually fed the Udaipur lake. Today, as the city grew, there are all of those catchments have been destroyed, and therefore there's no water coming to the lake of Udaipur. Therefore, what I'm trying to say is that the catchments of all our water bodies have to be managed. It's just not your small well that has to be managed, but the catchment from where the water falls and reaches the well and reaches their home have to be all managed judiciously. And therefore, thank you very much. Happy to connect. I'm just a last word of apology that it's such a large topic. I have jumped, but I'm very happy to share with anybody who is interested in the future. I can always connect with you all, and happy to share. If you ever want to visit any of them or want to know more, or from where you can read more. As I said, I'm just a water nomad. This is just one of my parts of my work. This is not my bread and butter. But thank you very much for listening patiently, and I stop now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for a wonderful lecture. We really learned a lot about the water systems. You can ask the questions in chat mode. I'll read out those questions.
Okay, let me see. Let me go there. Okay, sorry. Any question, anybody? I can't see any question yet.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. Anybody? Yeah.
नाही दिस इज पंकज इंगळे.
Hmm.
तुम्ही मराठी आहात, मी पण मराठी आहे.
हा, मराठी बोलू शकता. सॉरी,
हो दादा ऐका तर, तुम्ही एकदा धर्मगडला व्हिजिट केलं का? तुम्ही जे बुरहानपूरचं दाखवलं ते धर्मगड मध्ये पण आहे, 1000 वर्ष जुना.
धर्मगड which are talking near in South India near Bijapur.
इल्ले नाही आपलं हे जिथं आता हल्ली सध्या सगळेच शब्द अडकलेत.
So I thank you very much. But as I said that for me, this was interesting to
नाही
share.
नाही नाही,
Yeah.
एक मिनिट धुळ्याची इथं आहे
Yeah.
सेम ते तुम्ही जे बुरहानपूरला दाखवलं ना ते तिथं पण आहे.
ठीक आहे ना, ठीक आहे.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Any other question?
सर विचारू का?
हो विचारा.
एक second. Quickly, the reason aqueduct why is it up? Yeah, that's a good question. What happens is that for 4 kilometers, as I said, the Elvas aqueducts. So everywhere, what happens is when you get the aqueducts from a distance, after that they have to raise it because they have to then get gravity to really take it to the town, and that is the reason. So that aqueduct is not at a single height. It goes from at different levels in height by the time it comes to the town. And your question is absolutely right. Obviously, it will get destroyed by enemies coming, but that was the reason, as I said, in the Elvas history, that aqueduct at least 3 times was destroyed. But the reason for that is for using gravity and height for getting it to the village.
I see. Thank you, Bangi. That was from me. Chittor. Hi.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Gita, hi, thanks.
That's
Yeah.
hi.
सर सोनी सरांनी प्रश्न विचारलाय की कनात भारतात कुठे कुठे पाहायला मिळेल, त्याचा आपण एक बराणपूर म्हणू शकतो.
So as this gentleman was saying, then the other is actually in Karnataka. There is a place near Bijapur where also now they have found. But they were not so intricate, but it's roughly the same. And केरळमध्ये पण लॅटराईटच्या दगडात, म्हणजे जसा तो जांभा दगड असतो कोकणात लॅटराईट, तसं सुरंगम म्हणतात केरळमध्ये. बट one of the best still remaining, whatever little is left, you can see them in Baranpur. And as I said, this place near Bijapur, my son can actually tell me, I'm just missing the name, because my son is doing actually a film on the Kannats of the world. I hope he finishes it by next year. If Nachiket is there, he can tell the name of that fort in south. Again, people are writing. That's what I'm saying, that even Pune had the whole system where Katras or Pashan Lake actually was built more than 150 years ago by the British to take water to the University of Pune, where the British, whatever viceroy, whatever he called, he lived. From Katras, the waters came into the Vadas of Pune. So I'm trying to say that this is, most of our good towns in the historically we had this, but sadly we have gone. So I'm not the one to defend the heritage or say bad things or good things. I'm just saying that we are collectively responsible for a lot of our heritage going, and there is time that whatever is left, how can we preserve it? As that's, I think, one part of the story also.
Sir, how did they solve the siltation problem?
Yeah, again, very interesting. That's what I tried to show you in the slide. These, the shaft, people could actually walk through it. They were so big that the shaft in the one I showed you about the Zarch Qanat of Iran, 70 kilometers long. You can actually, in the past, there were specific people trained to do this. They would go down into these Qanats to desilt. And as I told you, there were certain parts where I showed you one picture, steps leading down the hole. By which they would go down and access the shaft. So absolutely, they would be silted or sometimes fall. There are recorded history of people dying because of caving in, because many of them were not lined. But when they came into the town, a lot of them were then lined below that the town of Yaz, which I showed you, under that mosque. When the Kannat came there, there were big rooms underground where the water collected. They were all lined. Even in Baranpur, they were the last part were lined by clay and other things.
And how they were dug? Soni Sarani प्रश्न विचारलाय. How they
by literally hand, by khapauda and
manual labor.
Real manual labor. Nachiket, just send me where Soni sir. It's called Kasargod. There is one in south and
Kasargod.
And Vijaypura. So Kasargod is in Kerala, which I said in the laterites. They build these, channels, and Vijaypura is the one in Karnataka. Yeah, so people are writing. That is what I'm saying. We all should write. We should document all our heritage. So people are writing Kolhapur. As I said, the third system is completely gone, which was near Nasik. There are so many systems which are completely gone. just one thing, if I permit me, then if many of you have gone to Sivagad, and again there are many geologists in the room, without getting technical, Dev Taka hai Sivagadavar. So that is what is called a perched aquifer. But if you empty it completely, it is going to go dry, but it is going to get recharged again with the rains. Just to again give you a small thing. And in Iran, many times it was not even the rainfall; it was the snowfall that fell in Yaz. Snow melt actually recharged the groundwater, and which was then captured by the canal. I stop and let me go to questions.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I'm Mrs. Rajani Soni.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask, will you please elaborate about the origin of this irrigation system? Origin is in the olden days, exactly at what time era?
So I get your question. Now, see, some of these things are difficult, but as I said, clearly which I told you in the Iran, and this Qanat or some of the old Qanats of Iran, which I told you, go back to the Persepolis after that 2000. So they are after 2,500 years before means, but they are clearly pre-Islamic. Number one, those records are there. And in some of the writings of the Persian, which I can later on, if you want, they go back surely 1,500 years. Mention of this canal, at least of this one, that example I showed you of the 70-kilometer long Zarch Qanat I showed you. There is a clear documentation about 1,500 years ago. Somebody asked drainage. I said that was the beauty of all the system. In people in the past, even Killanमध्ये drainage system असायचे, that when they had water harvesting, they also had drainage today. But if you see our big cities, again, I'm not pointing fingers at any planners. We do not build a house, then we see where water will come, and then we think put a drainage aayega nahi. But most of the systems in the past, along with the water harvesting, they also had proper drainage systems. And this is which I showed you, which has been documented, and there are scholars in the room. Maybe Manjari Balerao can talk, or somebody else can say. Right from the Mohen-jo-daro system, Harappa civilization had very good drainage system.
I think because of your presentation with images, that has given clear idea. So I don't think.
Yeah, in the sense, I always feel that if it is a virtual audience, one face-to-face, you can do much more theory thing. But I think today it was more important that we visually see these systems, and I can describe, go on talking monologue for long. आणि दुसरा, फॉर ऑल द पुना पीपल, मी मराठी आहे शुद्ध, माझी म्हणजे इथलाच आहे मी, मराठी येतं तुमच्याबरोबर, म्हणजे मराठीत काही वार्तालाप करू शकतो, पण टेक्निकली गेले 20 वर्ष बाहेर आणि UN मध्ये असल्यामुळे द होल presenting and writing has been English. So my apologies, and I'm quite happy with somebody to make this into Marathi someday. पण मी अजितांना म्हणलं होतं की मराठीत पण ट्राय केला असता, पण कधी कधी मग शब्द अडखळत गेले असते, and I didn't want the flow to be stopped. So म्हणून my apologies.
Sir, I'm here in Oman.
Yeah, Anuprita.
मी मस्कतहून अटेंड करते, आणि there are fallage systems here for water irrigation. इंटिरियर्स मध्ये जिथे डेट पाम्स आणि हे आहे, तर त्याचे ऍक्च्युअली वॉटर हे कुठून येत आहे ते आय कुडंट फाइंड द सोर्स जेव्हा आम्ही इंटिरियर्स मध्ये गेलो, पण ऑल द इयर फलज मध्ये पाणी असतं.
So my only answer to me, I have not seen this system, but Anuprita ji, तुम्ही पण ते लिहा मग आणि बघा, आपण we can also, I can try to see, put you in touch with somebody from there. But again, what I'm trying to say, these systems सुद्धा, I am 100% sure it is see, असं कुठंच होत नाही कधी की 200 मिलीमीटर रेनफॉल सुद्धा होत नाही, असं कधीच होत नाही. And I didn't want to, even Chile मध्ये, जिथे coldest, the driest part in the world is not in many of the deserts of Namibia or Egypt, but or Sahara, it is in Chile, where they are actually, even the ancient harvested the dew, म्हणजे सकाळी जे दव येतं. What I'm trying to say is that I'm quite sure 100% की इथे सुद्धा 300 मिलीमीटर ते 400 मिलीमीटर पाऊस पडत असणार आहे तुमच्या भागात सुद्धा. So तेच ते कसं कुठेतरी they are harvesting it and using it in their systems. I'm pretty sure.
I'll try to find out.
But I can also try to see. मला नंतर लॅब I can see somebody in that place also. And
जिथे ओएसएस सारखे थोडे रीजन्स आहेत ना, किंवा जिथे वादी वगैरे असतात.
Okay, so you raised a very interesting point. परत not taking into too much detail. OSS मध्ये काय व्हायचं, परत जिओलॉजिस्ट इन द ग्रुप विल टेल, there is to be a certain layer which was impermeable, म्हणजे पाणी जाऊ शकत नाही. आणि तिकडे तसे कॅचमेंट सारखंच येऊन ते पाणी साठायचं. दॅट इज अगेन बेसिक प्रिन्सिपल ऑफ ओएसएस. म्हणजे और कुठून तरी स्प्रिंग आलेली असायची अंडरग्राउंड अँड सेम वे. म्हणजे सी द एन्शियंट मस्ट हॅव ऑल्सो लर्न अबाउट कनाट फ्रॉम दिस ओनली व्हॉट यू आर सेइंग ओएसएस. म्हणजे कुठेतरी लांब सोर्स आहे आणि तो कुठेतरी जवळ आलाय. म्हणजे माउंटन्स मधून ती स्प्रिंग त्या डेझर्ट मध्ये आली आहे अँड दॅट इज द ओएसएस. So that is also what is a Qanat really. It's you are getting the water from far to the surface.
हो, कारण इथलं सॉइल असे की पाणी ऍब्झॉर्ब होत नाही. whenever there is rain the water will just flow to the sea. त्यामुळे इथे असं म्हणजे पाऊस धो पडला तरी थोड्या वेळात कोरडं होतं, असं वाटत पण नाही की पाऊस पडून गेलाय. So it is the water soil doesn't hold water.
Yeah,
so I was a bit inquisitive ki kuthun falas systems works throughout.
I'm sure
I'll find out anyways.
But it's linked. I'm sure it's linked to a spring, as I'm saying. Just
there are many hot water springs also here.
Yeah, and the last part to what to Anuprita Tai said is, again for the group here, Jaisalmer सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे दुष्काळ म्हणजे it's a dry. But 40 kilometers from Jaisalmer, also in the desert, people in the past grew wheat. I didn't want to get into that system, and that wheat production was as much as close to Punjab wheat per acre. So let's that's again another system some other day. But I'm just saying that wheat, which was unheard of today, you grow wheat in Rajasthan is because of the Indira Gandhi Canal, which is water from 500-600 kilometers away. Coming to Rajasthan by the Indira Gandhi Canal.
Maybe that was when Saraswati River, they say.
That is one part, but no, this is not. This is something to do with, as you just said, it is impermeable. It's a thing of geology, and I'll come to that some other day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ganesh, I think somebody has asked about desalination in ancient systems.
Well, I have never come across desalination anywhere because it is okay. What it's an interesting point is that people in Iran have looked at a bit when we were traveling there and studying is not me studying, interacting with scholars, is that a lot of sometimes the what is it called filtration helped some of the times. Again, Ajit, you are a geologist and I'm an extinct geologist, though my master's was in geology. But the people used a certain gravel and other things for, but not desalination as we know today. Where you are getting seawater, converting it through reverse osmosis. That was not there, but there was what they really did. Filtering was surely there in many systems in the past.
Sir,
प्रभाकर कोले बोलतो. प्रभाकर,
अरे नमस्कार. नंतर भेटू. आता
नंतर नक्की भेटूयात. मला एक प्रश्न विचारायचा होता की संबंध हिमालयात आम्ही जेव्हा फिरतो तेव्हा लक्षात येतं की बंड नावाचे प्रकार असतात आणि ते म्हणजे वरच्या लेवलवरचं पाणी असं कालव्यासारखं बांधून ते खालपर्यंत आणतात. त्यात पाणी पिकायला जातात, पितात. काही लोक त्यावरती ते बुद्धिस्ट चक्र पण चालवतात. तर तोही यातच मांडता येईल का?
Oh, these are all traditional systems. And to me, Manla, absolutely right. That too, I didn't again, as I told you, I just wanted to touch water lifting. There is also what is water power. So ज्याला आपण जशी गिरणी इलेक्ट्रिसिटीवर चालवतो, माझी आजी पणजी हाताने दळण करायची वीटला, तसं अजूनही. बट हिमाचल and there are some NGOs who are trying to revive. But even in Tibet, whole Tibet मध्ये or Himalayas all across. जे त्यांचं बार्ली किंवा मेज किंवा कॉर्न म्हणजे दळायचे, हे त्याच्यावर दळायचे, पाणी जायचं त्याच्यातून. अँड इट इज अगेन नॉट ओनली फॉर द हिमालयाज, प्रभाकरजी. इट वॉज ऑल्सो इन युरोप टू मेनी अदर प्लेसेस. Water was used for running what they call old pushing the kind of later, I won't call it turbine, but the wheels which then ground or also to lift water at a height. And the other part you mentioned, which is very interesting, is therefore is that it's not only taking water from. So it's very interesting. They would actually lift water without electricity by in the Himalayas by taking it to a certain level, then go up, then to a little by gravity, just the force of gravity. And the last part in that story is that even in Tibet, even today, if you go to many monasteries, त्यांचं जे फिरत असतात टिबेटमध्ये, that wheel, prayer wheel, is also moved by water, by the force of water.
Yes.
And
Thank
last
you.
part in that story is there was, which I again very fascinating is लोक बघत नाही की आडनावं कुठून आली. म्हणजे आपल्या म्हणजे काही लोक असेल इंटरेस्ट की त्यांची आडनावं कुठून येतात. म्हणजे भोळे आहेत आपल्याला माहिती आहे लोखंडवाला आणि हे ते पण प्रभाकरजी इन द हिमालयाज यू विल हिअर वन सरनेम कॉल कोहली. आम्ही आपल्याला माहित असेल कोहली खूप लोकांनी ऐकलं असेल. विराट कोहली सुद्धा विराट कोहली. ओके.
Right.
So Kohli was the person who managed water historically. That the name of the person who managed water was a Kohli, and then they also had different ways. How much Kohli? I mean, there was किती हेक्टर तो करायचा एक असं. Anyway, that was again to say how by water also people had their surnames.
Yeah. Thank you. फार आजचं लेक्चर फार छान झालं. आपण भेटूयात नक्की. थँक्यू.
तुम्हाला तुमची खूप आठवण. भेटू.
या जरूर. ओके. थँक्स अ लॉट.
सर, मंजिरी भालेरावांनी प्रश्न विचारलाय की आपण अफगाणिस्तानमध्ये जे कॅनल्स आहेत कुशाणांनी केलेले ते पाहिलेले आहेत का, किंवा त्याच्याबद्दल काही माहिती सांगू शकता?
नाही, पण मी म्हणजे आय हॅव सीन द कनाट्स. आता आय हॅव नॉट सीन द कुशाण, बट आय हॅव sadly been just tikade, again because of lot of turmoil. But I've seen a lot of, which I'm writing now a bit, is on it's a little for the outsiders, but there are books called Greater India, but it's not going to be, I'm calling it the footstep of our ancestors in Southeast Asia, maybe from Myanmar to in Thailand to Indonesia, Malaysia. Both the way Shiva, Ganesha went, and also but my more interest is in the water systems, Cambodia. That is what I'm really now a little bit in the last few years. Other than my normal work, I'm trying to put that together. Someday that will come out.
सर, माझा इथे एक प्रश्न असा आहे की या सगळ्या गोष्टीमध्ये पाणी लिकेज होऊ नये या सिस्टीम मधनं येताना, वेर देर एनी स्पेशल मटेरियल्स युज्ड like magnesium cement or something? What cementing material did they use in those times?
Again, good question. This is all basically again geologists, if somebody in the group wants to put their hand and answer, but a lot of it was clay and a lot of limestones and other things that they used. You look at the way the Egyptian pyramids are, what is the cementing of those large stones they have done. The same way here, they, as I said, some parts of it, and even in the Roman empires, they did have materials by which many times there was also a mix of natural vegetative material which was used, which I didn't want to get in. It was a mix. That's again another story which I can't talk much, but I've seen it and little bit read, is that vegetative material plus limestone plus some other materials were used for lining work to be done. Very good question. And then later on, we again had, there was ceramics. They did have tiled. Many of the Italian systems were tiled actually also.
सर, आमच्याकडे आम्ही मॅग्नेशियम सिमेंटवर माहिती गोळा करतोय. मॅग्नेशियम सिमेंट वॉज द काइंड ऑफ सिमेंट विच वॉज युज्ड फॉर सम ऑफ दीज पर्पजेस.
Thank you. So I can always you learn from somebody, but as I said,
Thank you, sir.
Just call me Ganesh. All of you don't please call me sir. I'm just one of you. Like yeah.
खूप छान लेक्चर झालं.
Okay, I'll since I gave so much time to Ajit, I just one small, if you don't bear with me, just as little publicity for today. Just today, and I'm sure all of you would be also interested. Today is also the day my book has been released on the Brahmaputra Nadi, right from source to sea. And anybody wants, it's a 400-page color book again on the river Brahmaputra. And as Ajit is doing this Water Week here, the actual World Water Week is a week that happens in Stockholm. So every year by the Stockholm Water Institute. And today, a little earlier in the day only, that the book was released. So any of you are interested in the Brahmaputra River, I'm quite happy to send you the PDF of the book. Just send me an email, or I will be putting up soon the link from the World Bank website from tomorrow or day after, where you can download the copy free.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, it's a wonderful and congratulations. It's a I have seen Brahmaputra and it is so massive. Brahmnada, they call it. They don't call it a river. They call it a nada.
Yeah, that's some other day, some lecture, but it's a very interesting story. That, but just again, if you're finished and if you give me 5 seconds, what we have shown in the book is, let's forget the 400 pages, the life history. But the Brahmaputra part of the river is only 40% of the river, just to let you all know. 1,100 kilometers of the river comes through Tibet actually. And I'm not getting into the story of it, but what I want to tell everybody today is that many of us don't know is that what we have said, even in the book for the first time, we have given the river its due. From the source to the sea, is that it is no Wikipedia, no list of the world mentions this river as one of the top 30 or top 40 rivers of the world. But the Brahmaputra is what we have now shown is one of the 20 longest rivers of the world. And a fact which none of our school people, kids, or many of us know. So anyway, that's just for information as trivia, that we should be happy that one of the 20 longest rivers flows from our country.
Thank you, sir.
Anyway.
Thank you, sir. It was wonderful lecture. Excellent and loaded of information.
Yeah, okay. I think Ajit, people may be tired. If any one or two last questions.
I think
Ganesh, Professor Panaskar speaking.
Namaskar, Professor Deepak. Go ahead.
Namaskar. How are you?
Yeah, fine. Let's catch up later.
Just give your email address so that can.
Yeah, I put it in the last slide, but G Pangare, one word, PANGARE @gmail.com.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Quite happy if anybody wants to visit. I want to know more books. Kadi phirayla gela kutla bhagat, I can always share some tips with you.
Thank you. Pramila madam, तुम्ही
Yes. Oh, sir. Yes. I must thank Dr. Ganesh Pangare Sir for giving this magnificent talk. And sir, heartiest congratulations for your book, which was unveiled just today. And I must also thank the wonderful audience that we have with us today. And you have taken us around the world, sir, for this very in-depth talk. Of course, language is never a barrier for the proliferation of knowledge. So thank you so much in all ways that, and also thank Mission Devrai for conducting these sessions and giving us a lot of insight into various topics. In continuation with this, through the week, there will be lectures which will begin at 6 in the evening, and the password and link that has been sent to all the audience members will be the same for all the lectures through the week. For tomorrow, there are going to be 2 sessions. The first speaker will be Mr. Uday Gaikwad, who will be speaking on the conservation of the Rankara Lake at Kolhapur. And the second section will be conducted by Mr. Kiran Nipankar, who will be sharing his insights on the restoration of tanks at Belgavi in Karnataka. So with this, I'd like to wrap up this today's wonderful session. And thank you very much, everyone. Have a pleasant evening ahead.